Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are on a listen-only mode until a question and answer period towards the end. Today's webinar is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now, I'd like to turn the call over to your host, Deb Rivera from the U.S. Census Bureau. Deb, you may begin.
Great, thank you so much. Good afternoon and welcome everyone. I hope everyone is having a great day. My name is Deb Rivera and I work in the communications team for data.census.gov, and as stated, I will be the host for today's webinar titled data.census.gov for Beginners, How to Get Started. So today you all will be learning the basics on how to start your data search on the Census Bureau's main data search platform, data.census.gov. For this webinar event, I am joined by my colleagues who will be acting as panelists, and we will be providing support to our speaker by answering your submitted questions in the question and answer panel. And we'll be using the chat to send you helpful links that are related to today's webinar. So again, we are encouraging participants to use the Q&A panel in WebEx to submit questions and look to the chat panel for links and other helpful information. Please do not enter any sensitive information into the Q&A panel. This includes personally identifiable information, business identifiable information, or any other sensitive or personal information. We will have a Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. We will be allowing one question per participant. Participants who would like to ask a question are welcome to use the raise hand icon, which appears next to your name in WebEx, and that will prompt us to open up your line. You will then be able to unmute yourself to ask your question. And if you have any additional questions and time allows, we encourage you to queue up to ask again. Please note that the Q&A session today will focus on the platform, data.census.gov. We will not be able to go in depth to address questions on 2020 census products or data. As always, we are recording the webinar today, and all of the materials for this training will be available through the Census Academy website. Thank you all so much for joining us today. And now I'd like to turn things over to our presenter, Tyson Weister. Thank you, Tyson.
Thank you, Deb, and thank you all so much for joining the webinar this afternoon, data.census.gov for Beginners, How to Get Started. My name is Tyson Weister. I work on the communications team in the Center for Enterprise Dissemination, which is the area responsible for data.census.gov and the Public Application Programming Interface. What we have planned today is focusing obviously specifically on data.census.gov. We are primarily going to be doing a live demonstration, answering a few common questions as we go along. We'll talk about the latest feedback we've received and how that drives future improvements to the site, resources for you to learn more that will supplement today's training, and then the question and answer period that Deb mentioned. Before we get into the live demo though, just wanted to paint a picture of what data.census.gov is and what you can expect to find in it. So we are the primary platform for the U.S. Census Bureau, and that means that we have the most popular data from the Census Bureau from different surveys and programs. This includes, on a high level, the decennial census data dating back to the 2000 census through the most recent 2020 census data tables, American Community Survey data up through the release of the 2022 ACS one-year estimates and dating back to 2010, and various economic census and selected business survey data from 2012 through the most recent release. So that's what you see on a high level on the left-hand side of the slide. If you'd like a very detailed listing of every single data set, survey program, different types of tables, and which vintages are available on our site for those, we encourage you to check out the resource included on this slide via the QR code or the link at the bottom of the screen that will take you to that detailed table listing. But with that background, for today's session, we're going to show data from all three of these high-level survey and programs. Our goal at the end of the session is that you will feel comfortable using data.census.gov to get started with your searches, that you'll know how to go about starting using the single search bar and the advanced search filters, different ways that you can customize your table view, and that you'll know how to save the results once you've gone through the steps to find the perfect data table. And there are two primary ways to go about searching on the site. When I start on data.census.gov, I usually like to give the single search a first try. See if it might give me a quick answer to my question. What works well in the single search bar is typing in keywords. So single topic, geography, year, table ID, or codes. We're going to walk through a few different examples showing some searches that you could consider using or tweaking for your own use. So we're going to walk through the single search bar to pull up the population total in Indiana, 2020 decennial census tables in Allen County, Indiana, and then I'm going to show you a product called the Geography Profile for Fort Wayne, Indiana. So we're going to focus on example number 1 at the top via single search. Notice I have some other content on this slide that's currently grayed out. In our demonstration, we're going to ultimately be progressing to more advanced ways to go about searching and more advanced functionality to show you. But to get us started, we'll do the population total in Indiana. What you'll do is go to data.census.gov using the URL of your browser. We recommend Google Chrome for the best speed and performance, but we do support the other major browsers. So when you get to the landing page here, you'll notice the single search bar is right in your face. It's easy to find. You can click into it and type in those keywords. So here as a quick example, we're typing in population total in Indiana. In order to run the search, you would just press enter or click the spyglass icon on the right. From here, this is going to take you to the all results page. So before we get there, what I want to point out is anytime you type something in the single search bar, we are making our one best guess for what we think you mean. So I always recommend that users take a look in the upper left at the filters that will tell you how we are recognizing your text in case you need to tweak it or use another search strategy that we'll show you later on. In this case, it seems very straightforward. It found a topic filter for population total, as well as a geography filter for Indiana. If you'd like to learn more about the filter categories that are available and what the lock icon means versus the X, there is a question mark here at the top of the panel that walks through the different categories and different ways that your filter may appear, depending on whether it was populated from text you entered through the single search bar or through an advanced filter selection that we're going to show later on. But moving on to the actual results, I wanted to show you here, in some cases, the text that you enter will result in a featured statistic. So by typing in those few words, we're actually able to get the exact answer we were looking for, total population being 6,785,528 people that live in Indiana based on the 2020 decennial census. As you scroll through this all results tab, which is indicated in the orange bar at the top, you'll see different table recommendations, some of the top map recommendations that correspond with each of the data tables, profiles that we'll be exploring later, and finally, recommendations to different web pages on census.gov that will have different technical documentation, reports, and other sources. So primarily for today, we're going to spend most of our time in the Tables tab and some of our time in the Maps and Profiles tab. So if you wanted to dig deeper into total population, you could click on that Tables tab. And on the left-hand side of the screen, do know that there are panels that are available to you for filters and results. So anytime you want those panels to be exposed, you can click the buttons on the left-hand side in order to collapse or expand those panels as you want to use them. And more space on your screen on the right-hand side will be devoted to the table view or map view, depending on your settings. But these are always accessible to you. I wanted to take just a moment to look through how this search has generated this list of 737 tables. You can click between the different titles in order to show the data on the right-hand side of the screen. In this case, the first result is from the decennial census program. The table ID is P1. The table title is race. And this very first row happens to show the same estimate that we were seeing in the all results page, here with more detailed information included as well. And of course, the Census Bureau has lots of data, including data for population totals. So you'll see this long list of tables has different sources of data. For instance, we have some limited information from the Population Estimates Program, population totals from the American Community Survey, if you're looking for a population between the decennial census years, and many other types of tables that you can explore. We're going to take a deeper dive into the tables later on. I just wanted to show you some tips to get started with your search. So we chose, in this example, a topic and a geography. Here I'm going to edit my search criteria. And actually, I'm going to click the US Census logo in the upper left. That will start you fresh from the landing page. So moving on to our second single search, I'm going to type in 2020 decennial census, Allen County, Indiana. So here in this example, we have a year, the data set, and the geography, Allen County, Indiana. Just like before, we'll go ahead and run the search. We always look in the upper left for how those filters were interpreted. So in this case, we also get a nice match: the year filter 2020, the program filter decennial census, and the geography filter Allen County, Indiana. Then clicking on the tables tab at the top, we can see this will give us the list of all 253 table results that have currently been released for Allen County from the 2020 decennial census. Again, we're going to take a deeper dive at tables in a future example, but wanted to show you different tricks to start your search. The last thing, kind of tying into these long lists of table results, is if you're ever feeling overwhelmed as you're trying to get started, we definitely recommend that you check out a product called our Geography Profiles. So going back to the landing page, clicking the census logo in the upper left, you can pull up these profiles anytime you search a single geography. So as an example, I'm going to type in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and press enter. We'll look in the upper left at the filter panel, make sure it has registered a single geography selection and that it matches what we expected. The easiest way to access the profiles from here would be to click on the profile tab that you see at the top. This is a new feature that we released over the past couple of months. And this will give you first our top recommendation for the profile based on your search. So here it's found exactly what we would expect: the profile for Fort Wayne City, Indiana, with some high-level statistics and a view profile button. The profile tab will also display this information in a list format, giving you the top recommendation at the top of the list and other geography profiles that may be of interest to you that are related to that search. We want to go ahead and open up for Fort Wayne, so I'm going to click that view profile link. What the profiles do is give you a little bit of information about the geography at the top, including a map, and then it starts loading the most popular data that the Census Bureau has. And what I love about the profiles is it's pulling not only across different data tables all in one view for you, but it also pulls across different surveys and programs. And these data are being pulled in real time from our application programming interface. I'm going to click over here. I have some of the data loaded up in a separate tab. We can see the total population from the 2020 census, median household income, percent bachelor's degree or higher, percent employment rate, and other key topics. And as you scroll down, so not only do you get some of that key information at a glance, there's so much more that these profiles have. As an example, we can see a high-level statistic for median age for Fort Wayne City compared to the state of Indiana. So we see Fort Wayne has a lower median age than the state overall. And you'll also get some sort of visualization. It's either going to be on the right-hand side of your screen or in a bar chart, population pyramid, or line chart below. Here we're looking at a population pyramid for Fort Wayne, and we can see male on the left-hand side in blue, female population on the right-hand side in yellow, and the different age ranges. So we can kind of quickly at a glance digest this information and see that Fort Wayne has a pretty high population of college or working age and plenty of families with children. So this is helpful. You can scroll through and get that information, not just for age, but across a variety of topics that you may not even know the Census Bureau collects data on, things like ancestry, language spoken at home, native and foreign born. There's over 40 different parts to this profile that you can work with. So helpful to digest on its own. There's also these tabs at the top if you'd rather not scroll through an entire profile, but if something piques your interest, such as education, you can click on that section and it will jump you to that part of the profile without you having to scroll to it manually. The last thing that I wanted to show with the profiles is that they include source information and clickable links. So as a quick example here, if we wanted to get more detailed information about age, you could click on the S0101 table. It shows you the source is from the 2021 ACS 5-year estimates. And this is another entry point to get into our data tables without having to dig through a long list of tables or come up with your own search. When you choose that clickable link, you'll get the data shown for you automatically. Notice our geography selection is at the top. We get the total population, corresponding percents, and other detailed information for us to dive into. Again, we're going to take a deeper look at tables in our next example, but hopefully those are some helpful tricks to get you started both with Census Bureau data in general through the profiles and especially with the single search bar and navigating our site. With that said, there is an alternative way to go about searching on data.census.gov. It's called the advanced search or filters. What I love about the advanced search, it's a guided approach. I don't need to come up with my own words and phrases to describe what I'm looking for. I'll be clicking through different words and phrases, ultimately looking for one or more checkboxes as a final selection. For that reason, it's the most precise way to go about searching. The advanced search also includes options to detailed search criteria that are not supported through the single search bar, such as census tracts and other detailed selections. So to work through this example, I'm going to show you the percent without health insurance across 3 geographies. We're going to select Florida, Jacksonville, and zip code tabulation area 32202. So going to the live site, we'll click the US Census logo in the upper left, starting us fresh. And when you want to use the advanced search filters, you'll click the advanced search link directly below the single search bar. On the left-hand side, what we're going to be doing are clicking through these different categories to look for those checkboxes I mentioned. But at a high level, notice that there are a variety of high-level topics such as geography, topics, surveys, years, and codes. So those are the different types of filters available to you. The subcategories are exposed by default. Typically, we recommend starting with whatever you think's most important, and geography is usually a good place for that. So on the left-hand side where it says state, I'll go ahead and click. Then look for Florida. Once we click that checkbox, what you'll see in the upper left is it's been added as a filter, and then you can go about making your second selection. So here we'll choose Jacksonville. That's categorized as a place. Follow the prompt, choose the option that says Florida. In this case, it has a chevron. That means when we click Florida, we're going to get more detailed options to choose from. Specifically, these detailed options will be all of the places in Florida. They're in alphabetical order, so you could certainly scroll to Jacksonville. I like to click into the search filter at the top where it says search place. This will allow you to search just the contents of this individual panel that is loaded, so we can start typing in Jacksonville. You do need to mark a checkbox in order to make that a final selection, and be very mindful of your spelling as it is sensitive in this particular box. Marking that checkbox, we see we've selected our second filter. So you'll follow this process. You can select multiple geographies. Our next one that we're looking for is called zip code tabulation area. They're general representations of zip codes. Follow the prompts, choosing Florida. Once again, we'll be getting a list of all of the zip code areas in Florida. We could scroll or simply click into that search panel at the top and type in 32202. Mark our checkbox in order to make that selection. So far we have 3 geographies selected, but we haven't told the site that we're specifically interested in health insurance data. Remember on the left-hand side when I showed those list of filter categories, there was one called topics, and here's where you can make that selection. So you'll choose health as an example. Look for a checkbox that matches. Here we'll click health insurance. And we see that has been added in the upper left. So we have 3 geographies, 1 topic. Whenever you've made your set of selections and you're ready to run the search, you'll click that blue search button in the lower right. That will take us to the all results page. And here we're going to take a deeper dive into the tables. So we'll click the tables tab at the top. There are 87 table results for health insurance that are available for at least one of these 3 geography selections. The first one is from the American Community Survey, S2701, selected characteristics of health insurance coverage in the United States. You can see the top of the table also has the table ID, table title, data source, and it shows that this particular table is coming from the 2022 ACS 1-year estimates. So let's take a look at what that means. We can see the geographies are in the column of the table. So we first get data for Florida. And as we scroll to the right, we see data for our second geography, Jacksonville City, Florida. And then we reach the end of the table. So this is something that happens to many of our users. Our geography is programmed as an OR logic. So it means it's giving you results for every possible table and product that is available for at least one of your geographies. The thing you need to be mindful of with the American Community Survey is that 1-year data are only provided for areas with populations of 65,000 and more. So what this means is sometimes in order to actually view the data for all of your geographies, you may need to manually click into the ACS 5-year estimates product. You can do that by clicking this drop-down menu at the top and choosing ACS 5-year estimate subject tables. There's also an option to the left where you can view all of the available products for a particular table. And once you click on one of those options, here I'm clicking on 2021 ACS 5-year estimates, it will populate the data on the right. So in this case, we don't have to worry about that population threshold. We see data for Florida, data for Jacksonville City, and data for our zip code tabulation area 32202. So now that we have all of our geographies, let's take a moment to browse what the table's telling us. The first row is giving us data for the total civilian non-institutionalized population. There's a column for the total population, the total number of people with health insurance, third column for the corresponding percent of people with health insurance, total number of people without health insurance, and the percent uninsured. So we can see it's 12.6% uninsured in Florida. I am going to make some tweaks to the table here. We're going to walk through this step by step in our next example. So don't worry about the process that I'm going through at the moment. I just want to show you that with a couple of clicks, you can make these data appear side by side to just keep the columns you're interested in, and we can compare the percent uninsured across these 3 different geographies, 12.6%, 12.1%, and 19.5% side by side. What this table is telling you is the first row, the total percent of people without health insurance. But then on the left, if you wanted to look at health insurance broken out across different age categories, health insurance status broken out by male or female, health insurance status by race and Hispanic origin. There is so much data that this site is offering to you that you can dive into. So going back to review a couple of key concepts, one is a common question we get from data users: why does my table not show all of my selected geographies? A common reason for this is that you're clicked into the ACS 1-year estimates product and you need to click into ACS 5-year estimates because the 1-year estimates are only available for populations with 65,000 or more. Another key concept that I didn't go into a lot of detail is how do I select my city or town, such as Jacksonville City. Remember, we clicked on the left-hand side, the place option, followed the prompts and chose Jacksonville. This is showing a similar process to select Atlanta City. Most states will follow and categorize their city as places. A few states, primarily in the Northeast and the Midwest, what you think of as your city is classified as a county subdivision. And usually these are called towns, townships, or boroughs. So if you're ever having trouble selecting your city, just wanted to review this common question. If you're not finding it on place, be sure to check county subdivision and notice that these two options are located directly beside each other, so we make it easy to switch between them. Right, building on this, in our next example, we wanted to show you tips to make the most of your search. We're going to show functionality on the site, how to customize the table view, make a map, and save results. For this example, we're going to look at percent poverty, specifically from table DP03 across all census tracts in Spokane County. Even if you're not familiar with what census tracts are, we're going to look at them on a map, so don't be discouraged yet. In the single search bar, anytime you've went through the steps to find a perfect data table, you can type that in. Here I've been typing in DP03 and press enter. So if you've made a note about that in the past, notice it's going to be the most direct way to get you back into that data table. So here, if you click the tables tab, the site has narrowed down to the one table result that matches that selection. So do leverage that tip and trick anytime you want to return to a data table. On the left-hand side, I'm going to click the filters column. In here, we're going to see that you can use the single search bar for part of your search, and then you can build on it and add filters. So if I wanted to type a table ID and add my geography selection, that's very easy to do. We wanted to select all census tracts in Spokane County. So on the left-hand side, we'll click on census tract. Then we'll follow the prompts. Washington, Spokane County. You get a list of individual tracts to click on or a convenient option at the top to select all census tracts within Spokane County, Washington in a single click. So once we've made that, we see the filter's been added, and we're going to take a detailed look at the table. So we see the table has automatically put us in the ACS 5-year estimates because we've selected exclusively census tracts, and it knows to direct us to 5-year. Our first census tract is in the first column. As we scroll to the right, we see our next census tract, and there are many to scroll through. So let's take a look at the data, the other data columns for this particular table. It is showing us the estimate in the first column, so the total numbers, the corresponding margin of error. It also provides the percent and the percent margin of error. So we were interested in percent poverty. And I mentioned in my last example how you can easily hide columns in bulk that you would like to get rid of your view. So if you'd like to clean up the table, there are options here, and I really want to walk through all of the options available to you. So first thing is to hide those columns that you don't want to keep in your view. You can click the hide button at the top. And one option would be to individually click across all your geographies, the ones that you want to hide. But if you'd like to make these selections in bulk, you can use the search bar at the top as well as this checkbox directly to the left of the search box. So if you click it To start, it hides everything from the table view. Then what I like to do is click into the search bar, type the name of the column I want to keep. In this case, it's %. That will narrow my list to just those columns that contain the word %, and then you can click the checkbox to the left of the % in order to select the entire list in bulk. If you wanted to keep the margins of error, you could go ahead and leave them, but there are other buttons here on the table. So I'm going to click the hide button. I'm done with that one. There is a button under more tools. Depending on how far you're zoomed into, you'll margin of error in order to turn that on and off in bulk. So that was how I had made those couple of clicks in the last example. You were able to see it step by step. Now let's take a look at the data that the table's showing. The data profile is for selected economic characteristics. They cover a variety of topics. Here in there, they're in all capital letters. So it starts with employment status. You'll see commuting to work data, occupation, industry. I happen to know that the poverty data is located towards the bottom of this table. There is a section columns to the appropriate width. So you can see there's a section called percentage of families and people whose income in the past 12 months is below the poverty level. So that's the poverty section of the table. The most popular way to look at poverty data would be to look at it for all people. So we can see it's 16.4% in the first census tract, 27.9% in the next, and so on. So once you've gone through these steps, you may be interested in saving your results. So I wanted to provide some information for you about that. At the top hand ribbon of the table toolbar, there are a few primary ways to go about saving. The Excel and CSV buttons, that they give you output that looks similar to the table display. I'm going to show you the Excel. It's the most popular of the two. You'll go ahead and click that option in the top of the table and then follow the steps depending on which browser you are using in order to open up that file. This particular output will give you some information about the source of the data in the Information tab. Most users are especially excited to get to the Data tab. So once you click to Data, notice that we get output, again, looking similar to what we saw on screen. Our geographies are in the columns, everything's nicely indented and readable. And by the way, this has captured the customizations we made on the table display to only give us the % columns in our output. If you're ever interested in printing data from our site, this particular file is optimized for printing. That means that all of your labels are going to carry over across pages. So if you want a complete version of that printout, we do recommend printing from the Excel. The other primary way to download the data would be through the zip file format. So what you'll do from the table display is click that zip button at the top. You'll follow the prompts. This particular option does allow you to select multiple vintages of the data in case you'd like to download it in bulk all at once. I'm going to leave the default 2021 ACS 5-year selection and click download.csv. In the lower right, you'll see a progress bar. Once it's loaded up to 100%, it will allow you the option on your browser to go ahead and open up that zip file. And what that zip file is going to contain are a set of 3 files for each table vintage you downloaded. So in this case, I just downloaded the one. And what you're going to want to open up is the file that ends in data.csv. So we'll double click that in order to open up in Excel. Now this is a As I mentioned, machine readable output. Each geography has its own row, as we can see here. And as you follow the row across, all of the estimates that you saw on the table display in data.census.gov are here without any special formatting or indentation. So this is a great file format if you wanted to sort the data or work with it in some sort of software. And then here, just as a quick example for the data that we were looking at, it happens to come from this column, ANS. This is the percent poverty of all people data. You can see that in the label for the second row, that it shows percent of families and people whose income in the past 12 months is below the poverty level, all people. The way that you read the first row is DP03 is your table ID. 0128 is the 128th row that contained data in the table, and PE means percent estimate, E means estimate, PM means percent margin of error, and M means margin of error for the estimate. Going back to the table here, some other features that may be of interest. We recently added a new cite button based on feedback from users. This will give you the citation for the format in popular layouts such as MLA, APA, Chicago, and others. If you'd like to share the table, you can click the link at the top for share. This will allow you to share the results using social media, email, as well as a dedicated link. I'm going to go ahead and click the copy. If you copy this link, you can also grab it from your address bar, as by the way. When you visit it later or share it with a colleague, it's going to take them back to the exact same table selection and geography. So we'll see DP03 will be loaded for all census tracts in Spokane County. And going back, last thing I wanted to show you here is the notes button. This is very helpful to give you more information about the survey or program that the data came from. There's often links to technical documentation, methodology, and other helpful notes for you to read on screen. You'll also typically see any special symbols in the table are explained in the notes button. All right, so great that we have this percent poverty data across all these geographies. The last feature I wanted to show you on the site is how to make a map. So what you do is click Maps at the top. All of our maps are table-based, so this means that you always want to make sure that you found the data table that contains the data you want to map out. You're clicked into the Maps tab, still clicked into that corresponding table on the left-hand side, and then that your map has zoomed you into your geography and set the correct boundaries. So in this case, I can see I'm looking at areas in Spokane County. The census tract is shown on the legend. And if you also want to confirm the boundaries for your map, you can click the layer button and see it's also been set to census tract automatically based on that geography selection we made earlier through the filter panel. So most of this has happened automatically as far as the process of creating a map. The last thing that I need to do is tell the site out of all the values from that data table, which one do I want shown on the map. You can change this very easily by clicking into that variable drop-down menu at the top of your map. It's currently set to labor force. And notice we get a readable list that looks similar to the table display. It's laid out in the exact same order that the table was. So remember, we scrolled towards the bottom of the table to access poverty. You would scroll towards the bottom of this list in order to get to the poverty section, and then look for the label all people was what we were interested in mapping. Before I click that, I just want to note that we always default these selections to percentages when percents are provided in the corresponding data table. So this is going to map percent of all people in poverty. I'll go ahead and click in order to make that final selection, and we'll see this updated on our map. So the table is great to have the actual numbers. The map helps us visually digest this information very quickly, and we can see areas in Spokane County where poverty is higher is shown in the darker shades of blue. As we zoom in on the map, you'll see more street lines and street labels populate in order to help you make sense of these areas. And you can even click on an individual geography, such as Census Tract 24, to see that the poverty rate in this tract is 45.5%. And before we transition to your questions, I did want to briefly introduce you to economic data tables and more options to customize them on your screen. For this example, we'll pull up a sorted list of the number of rental car companies across all counties in California. One of the primary things I want to point out are economic data tables are laid out differently than our demographic data tables. You also may be interested in leveraging filter selections specific to those tables. So we're going to start by choosing advanced search. And I'm going to specify the NAICS industry code for rental cars. So on the left-hand side, under the code section, you'll see industry codes. NAICS is the first option. There may be instances where you already know the NAICS code you need up front, and you can follow the numeric values, but you can also leverage the filter panel itself in order to click into the words or phrases that pique your interest and find the code that you're trying to select. So in this case, I see 5.3 real estate and rental and leasing. So we'll click that option. Then we'll continue to drill into more detail. We see 532 rental and leasing services. 5321 automotive equipment rental and leasing. 53211 passenger car rental and leasing. And 532111 passenger car rental. So we keep getting more specific as we drill down, and we do look to mark a checkbox as a final selection. So I'm going to mark that checkbox in order to select the NAICS code for passenger car rental. To see this across all counties in California, click County on the left. We'll follow the prompts, choose California, and then mark all counties within California. Just like our other searches, we'll click that blue button in the lower right to run the search for our industry code and geography selection. And we'll click Tables to drill into the results. Your results, there's 36 here. We tend to provide the most recent data towards the top of the list. In this case, it comes from the County Business Patterns 2021 survey. Taking a look at the table, at the type of data available, notice that our geographies here are in the rows. There are actually instances where the same geography has multiple rows that we'll talk more about in just a minute. And this particular data for each combination of particular context will tell you the number of business establishments, their annual payroll, their first quarter payroll, and the number of employees. So let's see how we can use the functionality on the site that's specific to this type of table layout to make more sense of the passenger car rental businesses in California. First thing I want to do is look at why there are multiple rows for the same geography. And you'll see the difference is in this meaning of employment size of establishment code. So some geographies have detailed enough data that they provide business information depending on how many employees are employed at that particular establishment. So you may be interested in that detail, but for our purposes, I just want to look at the total across all counties. You can leverage the functionality on the site by hovering over one of these categories and click the 3 horizontal bars. You'll see there's a filter icon that populates, and this will allow you to choose the options that you want to keep. Here I'm going to click the Select All button twice to deselect all options. I'm going to indicate all establishments that I want to keep that selection. And in order to actually process this, we'll need to click the Apply button. Before I do that, I want to point out there are 100 data rows in this table. After we click Apply, it is only going to keep the rows that meet the criteria we just entered. So the all establishment criteria is applied, we're down to 34 rows of data. On the right-hand side, if we wanted to look at the rental car companies, you can look at number of establishments column. You can apply filters to these numerical value columns as well, clicking the 3 horizontal bars and the filter icon. And if you're dealing with actual numerical values, you'll get different filter options. So here you can choose equals, less than, greater than. We wanted to look in my example at counties that have 15 or more rental car establishments. So we would choose greater than or equals. Then you can click into the filter text box, type a value such as 15, and that has automatically applied. So it has kept the instances that meet this criteria. There are 15 counties in California that have 15 or more establishments for passenger car rental. Last thing you can do is click the column in order to sort the information in ascending or descending order. You can see the largest area of business has 373 instances. On the left-hand side, though, notice our geography is not in view. You can choose any of these columns and click the 3 horizontal bars in order to pin them to the left or right-hand side of your screen. That will make sure that it remains in view as you scroll throughout the table. So with that introduction to the business data, I wanted to transition and talk about the feedback that we receive. We invite you to let us know how we can make data.census.gov work better for you by clicking the feedback link under the single search bar or shooting us an email to census.data@census.gov. We developed the site through an agile process, so we will analyze that feedback, prioritize solutions, develop those solutions, test them internally, and release them. Not only through the emails we receive, but we also conduct usability sessions, engage with stakeholders through a variety of channels, participant observations, and much more. Based on the feedback that we've received over the past year, for your awareness, we do categorize the question or comment that we received and what it relates to. This shows you that we get most questions and comments related to navigation and data availability for the site. We also break this down further into subcategories in order to give us more detailed information about the things people are discussing with us. So it is analyzed heavily, and we do encourage you to provide your feedback to us. With that, we do update the system approximately every month or two through this agile process to stay up to date on the latest system enhancements, data releases, and educational opportunities. Please sign up for email updates, visiting the link, and subscribing to those updates, which will give you our monthly newsletter. We also encourage you to supplement this training today with hands-on practice through one of our workshops. We offer these each month across 5 different topics. There are 3 data.census.gov ones, basic, advanced, and mapping. These are anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. They're online and free, and it will allow you to view a demonstration, get a hands-on exercise, time to work through that exercise, and then you'll come back together as a group to make sure you got the right answer or work through any pain points. And as we look forward to taking your questions soon, I'm going to turn it over to Deb.
Great, thank you so much, Tyson. All right, so in just a few moments, we will begin our question and answer session. Today, we will be taking your questions over the WebEx audio. So a few reminders, we are allowing 1 question per participant. Participants who would like to queue up can use the raise hand icon, which is located right next to your name or at the bottom of the screen in WebEx, and that will prompt us to open up your line. You will then need to unmute yourself to ask your question. So while you all gather your questions and start queuing up, we would like to take a moment to invite you all to share your thoughts about today's webinar through an evaluation survey. Your feedback helps us design future training sessions and also allows us to improve on our current webinars. So I'm going to go ahead and send out all of the information that you need to fill out the evaluation through the chat. And then if you have any questions remaining after our session concludes today, please feel free to reach out to one of the email inboxes listed here. If you are a member of the public, please reach out to the Center for Enterprise Dissemination. And for members of the media, you may contact the Public Information Office at pio@census.gov. So with that, let's go ahead and start transitioning over to the question and answer session. If you have a question, please feel free to use the raise hand icon and we will unmute your line. But as we wait for questions to start rolling in, Tyson, we did get a couple of questions that came in through the Q&A panel. I think these would be helpful for our participants to hear the answers. Our first question is there a data dictionary available where a user could look up table numbers for various categories?
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for that question. So the table naming convention is dependent on the particular survey or program that you're working with. So they each typically have their own technical documentation. If you Google ACS table IDs explained, most of the tables that I showed today were from the American Community Survey. The first link is a table IDs explained page. And this will walk you through at least how that program is categorizing their tables. Each of the characters in a table is meaningful. So the first character will tell you the type of table. The next characters will tell you the subject of the table. Some tables end in characters that end through A through I, which means they're repeated for different race groups. And there are some table IDs that are specific to Puerto Rico geographies. So I would take a look at this in more detail for American Community Survey table ID documentation. From the decennial census, I can say on a high level, if you see tables that start with H, they typically provide information for housing. Tables that start with P typically provide information for populations or households. And then the characters after P and H will identify the lowest level of geography. So BG meaning block group, CT for census tract, and CO for county. So I encourage you to check out that documentation. Great question.
Thank you, Tyson. And I did send out that URL through the chat panel if anybody is interested. All right, I do see that we have a question from Heriberto. Can we please unmute the line?
Oh,
Yes, hi.
hi. Just my question is regarding the Puerto Rican population living in the United States. Is for me, it's like very hard to find information about Puerto Ricans living in different states. What is the or cities? What is the trick to get that information?
Great, thank you so much for that question. So when you're on the advanced search filters, on the left-hand side, there is an option called race and ethnicity. So you would
I
want
get
to,
that.
then you'll go to Hispanic or Latino.
Yes.
Then there's detailed Hispanic or Latino. Then you would choose Caribbean Hispanic, I believe. Yep. And then you'll see a Puerto Rican checkbox. So once you mark that checkbox, that is going to give you data for people that identify as Puerto Rican through the Hispanic origin. And then you could choose additional filters such as a particular state, county, etc. I'll just, for demonstration purposes, mark a checkbox to choose all states. And then when you go to your table results, it will give you data for those different products. So that's the way to get started. And I'll click on one of those to load the table on screen here. You'll notice that Puerto Rican will be displayed in the columns of the table. Do know that some of these products have certain population thresholds. So depending on the particular product that you're working with, you would it can be a little nuanced as far as the data availability rules, and I would invite you to write us in if following these steps isn't getting you to the exact data that you're interested in and you need further assistance. We do also have some webinars For instance, last month we released the 2020 detailed DHCA product that would be specific to this use case as well, and other products about accessing detailed race and ethnicity. So you're asking for data from one of our more detailed products that I would encourage you to visit more of our resources on, but hopefully this helps get you started, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you so much for that question. We will do one last call for anybody that might have questions and then they want to queue up to ask. In the meantime, Tyson, we did receive another question via the Q&A panel that I think would be helpful to a lot of our participants. The question reads, can you download maps similar to how you download tables for later use?
Great, thanks for that question. So currently we don't have functionality to download maps. What would work best is to take a screenshot of it using your favorite screenshot software such as Snagit or Snipping Tool. The other option is you can press Control P after you've created a map, but we haven't officially optimized that particular view for printing, so we do find that taking the screenshot works best, and we will be jotting down your feedback. We've had other users ask about this too, and we'll track that feedback as consideration for a possible future enhancement. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Tyson. We certainly have heard that many times. We currently don't have any questions in the queue.
All right, well, I did want to share some additional resources available. When you click the help link under the single search bar, it will take you to the data.census.gov resources page. This is your one-stop shop for all educational materials on our site. So what you'll find are short videos, full-length recorded webinars, including this webinar, which, by the way, we will be posting the webinar materials, including the step-by-step clicks that we went through in the demonstration today for you to access later. Also, you'll find information about upcoming data releases, PDFs with step-by-step instructions, access to the workshops, and much more. So we hope you do take the time to explore the resources that we've made available to you. Again, if you have data questions or comments, the email address is census.data@census.gov. And we also have a couple options for training. We do some training through our team. If you have a training request at sed.cedsci.outreach@census.gov, typically for national organizations, we host those trainings. Those are specific to data.census.gov, the microdata access tool, and the API. But we also have another resource available to you through our data dissemination and training branch. They are hosting this webinar for you today, and they're available through census.gov/academy. That's where you'll find the centralized training hub for the Census Bureau. So it provides training on all topics and tools, not just specific to data.census.gov. You can also request a training by reaching out to them at census.askdata@census.gov or 1-844-ASK-DATA. There is a data dissemination specialist locally that is assigned to your state. So we hope that you take advantage of these resources. Any last minute items, Deb, before we wrap up?
Thank you so much, Tyson. No, I would just like to thank everybody for taking the time and being with us today, and we hope that you learned a lot. We currently don't have any additional questions, though.
That concludes today's webinar. You may disconnect at this time. Have a good afternoon.